Goes family, welcome back to Larry's Anything Goes. Hopefully you guys have been having a great evening and whatnot. Sorry for the late start, but hey, we're here and it's all good. So before I get started, definitely please do the great three free things: like, share, and subscribe. It's always greatly appreciated if you guys could do that. Now, this broadcast today is, I like to call it my geeky moment. And the main reason why I like to call it my geeky moment is because the Truman Show was one of my favorite movies back in the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s. Even though it came out in 1998. And, Jim Carrey, the actor slash comedian, was hot at the time. He did that, me, myself, and Irene, the whole nine. And but this movie was a comedy, one of those wacky comedies back in the day. But the movie really speaks to the way how life can be and how life is for a lot of people, especially regular working people. And I say this because, a lot of regular working people live repetitive lives a lot of times, I'm not saying in a bad way, regular 9 to 5, they get up, they go to work. Well, nowadays they get up and go to the computer, which is nothing wrong with that. And a lot of times, because people are so busy surviving and getting by, they don't realize that there's a lot of things in their life that they wish that they could change, things that they can improve on. Self-improvement is always beautiful for everybody. And this movie talks about this in a big, big way, because the main premise of the movie is basically this, because I'll get into it if you've not seen it. The main premise of the movie is Jim Carrey was born into his character was born and his character is known as Truman Burbank. And this funny thing, his last name was basically because his life was based in Burbank, California, even though the world that he was living in was not considered Burbank, California. But anyways, Truman Burbank was born and was basically an unwanted baby, and a corporation bought him, basically, adopted him. I'm not going to say bought, but adopted him. Okay. And the corporation basically put a television show 24 hours, 7 days a week, revolving around his life and everyday activities through the eyes of one creator of the show. His whole premise and his whole mindset was basically to create the perfect world that does not exist. In a sense, kind of a Leave It to Beaver lifestyle. The old school 60s and 70s shows where, everybody's, married, everybody has the picket fence house, everybody, is living in the same neighborhood, working the same job, and, just regular lifestyle. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. The main reason why I chose this is because, hey, it's goes to my life as well. You have a burning desire to do something else, but this is a lot of the forces that are around you, they do not want you to think outside of the box. You have a lot of forces that are just like, hey, you should just be happy with what you have. Okay. You should not want more. Okay. More though. You should not want to go see the outside world. The outside world is an evil place. More is worse. Different is bad. It's just literally going against the grain is just a bad thing. You know what I mean? And it kind of reminds me of the story of how Silicon Valley was created, the Bill Gates, the Steve Jobs, where they thought outside of the box. Because before, if you think about it, before Steve Gates and before Bill Gates and before Steve Jobs, most people worked at corporations forever. They got a good job. They stayed at a corporation forever until they retired for 30, 40 years. They got the gold watch, they got the nice pension, and that was that. But then you had people during that time frame, I believe it was during the 70s and 80s time frame, they were like, hey, well, we want to create this good technology, but we don't just want to do it for other organizations. We want to do it so we can make money. We should get our fair piece of the pie and whatnot, and we want to own it. You know what I mean? So that's another story for another day. But when it comes back to the Truman Show, Truman basically wanted to be with another woman, but he was married to this woman that the show itself placed on him, that he did not really want to be with anymore. But he just kept, every time he wanted to do something different, they would crap on it. He wanted to travel the world, and they said, and be an explorer. That's like, well, there's no place to explore, so you have to try something else. He wanted to date this one woman, and his friend would distract him from wanting to be with this one woman, and then the show wanted him to be with was always there, always around him, always, you know, sucking up to him, et cetera, and so forth. So he went along to get along. But then it got to a point where he just got so crazy because, and I think this can really boil down to people having the midlife crisis, a mental breakdown. I'm no medical professional or anything of that nature, but I think that this is how people can become stressed out a lot of times and have a mental breakdown when they are living a lifestyle that society says that you should live, but they're not living the lifestyle that they want to live. You know what I mean? And I think that has a lot to do with a lot of people's unhappiness and whatnot. And I think this whole situation today with the pandemic, it's really taught a lot of people what they should, one, appreciate, two, you know, to not only just go along to get along because they see that the old way is kind of fading away in regards to how people make money. And people just have to rethink and recalculate on how they're going to live their lives. You know, a lot of people move. People don't talk about it, but there's been a big migration of people leaving the major cities because they don't want to be in such proximity to everybody else, you know. You know, last week I talked about New York, but it's all over the country, all over the United States. A lot of people want to get further away because they want to practice their own version of social distancing, you know. But to get deeper into the story, you know, and that's the thing. It's like the movie talks about how, you know, jobs, friends, schools, career, everything was laid out for him. He really had no choice. And even if he felt like he had a choice, he still didn't have a choice in a sense, you know, because it's the world that they were created for them. And a lot of times people end up in these situations. And a lot of times that's why people end up getting a divorce. They just leave a situation because they realize that this isn't what I wanted. However, I went along to get along because this is what society told me I wanted. You know what I mean? Deep down, Truman's heart, because basically his career, he was married to a woman he didn't really love. His career was an insurance salesman, you know, so it was a lot going on. You know, he didn't want to live in the town that he lived in. He wanted to go explore the world and go to places he'd never been to. Deep down in his heart, mind, and spirit, he knew that he did not want to live in that town that he resided in. And he did not want to be married to the woman that he was married to, you know. There was a point in the movie when Truman was in a downtown area of the hometown that he lived in, and he just knew that something was wrong with the whole society and that he knew that he did not belong there. He had that aha moment, you know, and a lot of people had those moments. I had that moment 8 years ago, you know, when it came to living in the DMV. When I spent a couple of hours in downtown Los Angeles, I said, this is me. When I went to Hollywood, I was like, this is me. When I went to Riverside, I said, this is me. The laid back, mellow atmosphere, the way how people make money and make a living and whatnot. I said, this is me. All right. People not doing the status quo. This is me. Outside of the box thinkers, the creators, the movers, the shakers. That's me, you know. So I can relate to the story. You know, I can relate to the movie. And, you know, just it brings a lot of attention to me. I mean, I paid attention to it in detail. I was like, you know what, I want to go on live stream about this, you know. And it's just, and it's interesting. And the one thing is, another thing that the movie talked about was, you know, they controlled the media. So anytime he felt good about something, they would find some way to make it negative. That's why I talk about the media a lot. They tried somehow, some way to make it negative. So you have a big movement of people going to Africa nowadays, all right? And we've always been told that Africa's bad, Africa's this, Africa's that, and now you see a lot more people. You know, before obviously the virus came out, a lot more people have been traveling abroad and whatnot, and you see a lot more Americans. Just like you have a lot of people that love to come to live in America, you have a lot of Americans that love to go live in other countries, and I think that's great. It's great on both sides. You have a lot of people going to Africa, Central South America, the Caribbean, especially people who are retiring because their retirement goes much further. You know what I mean? But people are dismissing the media. You know, like the DNC and RNC, I could care less about that right now. I didn't watch it, will not watch it, don't need to hear nothing about it. Okay, anyways. A lot of people are just like not listening to it because they want to go experience life for themselves. And I think any reasonable adult should be able to want to experience something on their own and not have to have another person form their own opinion, their opinion for them. And that's what the movie the Truman Show was doing. It was forming every time he'd have an opinion about something, the writers of the show, the directors, the owners of the show would find a way to manipulate his opinion and whatnot. So he would always think how they wanted him to think. You know, there was some mind control going on. Constant mind tricks. Okay. constant Jedi mind tricks. All right. And there were signs and propaganda everywhere telling Truman not to travel via airplane or anything when he wanted to go travel. You'd see pictures, because this is obviously before cell phones and whatnot. You see pictures of planes getting into accidents, bad weather. It's just talking about being happy and dull and predictable with the lifestyle that you have. Excuse me, I'm still eating my dinner, so call it what you want to call it. But anyways, there was such a dull and predictable life that he just, that he was living within the show, and he just wanted to get out of the world, that was created for him. And a lot of people suffer from that. I can speak about the DMV people. A lot of them, I hear so many people in the DMV, they tell me if I could just get a better job that pays me the same amount of money I get here elsewhere, I would have been gone a long time ago. And I think that's pretty sad, because you should be able to live in an area, a city, state, or country that you're excited about, not because of your job and whatnot. Just my personal opinion. I'll leave it at that. But he was so determined, and that's another thing, determination. That's another thing about the movie. Truman was determined to get out of that town. The man drove through a fire. Okay, was willing to fight the police because he was determined, because there was a quote unquote emergency going on, a leak at a plant and things of that nature, and fire. And he was willing to go through all that because he was not willing to settle for his comfort zone. And that's another thing people don't understand. It's like you have to refuse to settle. Okay, Clark Kegley, one of my favorite YouTubers out of Seattle, lives in Arizona now. His thing is called refuse to settle, and you should refuse to settle when it comes to your life. That's the main thing about the Truman Show I take away from that movie. He refused to settle with the lifestyle that society said he should be happy with. Okay, and that's how you've had the Master P's, you've had the P. Diddy's, you've had the Russell Simmons, you've had the Robert Johnsons, you've had, I could go on and on. Okay, the Bill Gates, the Steve Jobs, the Mark Cubans, the Mark Zuckerbergers, I could go on and on. The creators of Google, the creators of Twitter, I can go on and on, because these people refuse to settle for the lifestyle, that was laid out to them. I mean, heck, most of these creators of these tech companies now, they don't even graduate college anymore. That's the reason why these tech companies don't even require a college degree anymore, because they're like, hey, we want the outside of the box thinkers working for us. We don't need the people that can count to 4. We need the people that can count to 7 and be able to get back to 7, going backwards and forwards 5 different times. You know what I mean? It's a little crass, but you get what I'm going with this. Okay, we need the outside of the box thinkers, the quote unquote weirdos. That's what makes the world go round now. Okay, I can say that with sincerity. Because the director of the Truman Show stated that he created a world through his eyes in which he wanted the world to look like. Then the questions come to mind: who says that the world should look the way that you want it? The thing that I like about the geography of the United States of America and a lot of other countries is if you want to experience different cultures, weather, and lifestyles, you have the opportunity to do so. Truly the moral of this story, at the end of the day, the moral of this story, of this movie, is that happiness starts with you, and it starts with the life that you do not have to take, constant vacations from. Another thing to take into consideration is that in this movie that everyone around the world watched, in the movie, it showed that everybody and their mother was watching the show 24 hours a day, as much as possible, even when they were at work. Okay, because it aired 24 hours, 7 days a week, which to me shows how bored society is when their lives revolve around a television show. Truman eventually made it outside of the world that was created for him. Even though he had the option to stay on the Truman Show, Truman left his comfort zone, took the risk, and said, I'm going to face the world of the unknown to him and truly live life on my terms. Okay? I could not agree with that more. Now, this is a quote from the movie that I thought was very interesting. It was a quote from the director of the Truman Show within the movie. And he stated, and I quote, who was played by Ed Harris: "We accept the reality of the world that we are presented with. We accept the reality of the world that we are presented with." So the question is, do you all accept the reality of the world that you have been presented with? Please let me know in the comment sections, whether you're watching live or you're watching later. Because that's another thing, another way for me to talk about, when I do, just another way for me to venture in the comfort zone aspect. You've been presented with a reality. And I think most people don't. but you've been presented with a reality. And is this the only thing that you're going to accept? Because I say this, people who, a lot of people who grow up very poor, whether it's in the U.S., outside of the U.S., and make something of themselves on whichever level they do it, but they make something of themselves. They chose to work hard and say, I choose to do better. I choose to not just settle for what's been given to me. Whether I'm not going to blame any system, any education system. I'm not going to blame my parents. I'm going to take the personal responsibility of trying to make something happen, and then try to make something happen with others. Get the collectivism going. Sometimes you have to get the individualism going so you can make yourself a sharp person, from a mental perspective, physical perspective, intellectual, etc. Then you get with other people and you collaborate and motivate so that you can keep that same circle with you so that you can stay motivated. Because I don't care how determined one person is, they got to be around other determined, motivated people. Okay. Now, that's one aspect, because you have people that have left the roughest neighborhoods in the U.S. and make something of themselves, whether they got a skilled trade, they went to the military, they got a degree, or they just started a business, whatever have you. You've seen that. You've seen people come from some of the worst war-torn countries in the world, whether it be El Salvador, whether it be Somalia, whether it be Mexico, Haiti, whatever. And by the way, I'm not picking on any specific country, but you've seen people do that. Come to the U.S., go to Europe, go to Canada, and make something of themselves. And a lot of times they'll make something of themselves in those countries. Then they'll bring that money back home to not only take care of the family, but to open up something there as well. Okay. Because they refuse to accept the reality that was presented to them. Okay, that is what I'm talking about. They refuse to accept the reality that was given to them. This one guy, if you ever look up on African Americans living in Asia, the one brother from Cincinnati, Ohio, I think I mentioned him before, he opened up a club in South Korea. Okay, not prior service. He saw a need. He was managing clubs in the U.S. He saved up some money, and then he opened up a club in another country. And he was determined. And he's from quote unquote hood of Cincinnati. But my man was determined. He didn't let his reality that was presented to him be the end of his life. So that's why I said the days of excuses are gone. And that's why I had to talk about this movie, because I think the next movie I'm going to talk about is going to be about how McDonald's started and whatnot. Because that's another story talking about how one does not accept the reality that is being presented to them. When you leave your comfort zone, family, your world will change, and it will change in a specific way that you cannot believe. All right, you cannot believe, and that is one thing. A lot of people live great lifestyles, and that's one great thing I can say about the DMV is that a lot of people come to the DMV area to leave other parts of the world or the country and to make something of themselves, whether it's via a job, whether it's via business. You got a lot of family business owners here who step up and handle their business. Okay, so I always admire and respect that. You have a lot of business owners who step up and handle the business. Okay, people that come from one country. I mean, heck, the county I grew up in, there's two grocery stores. There's one gentleman who's from El Salvador. I remember reading about his story years ago. Okay, in Prince William County, Virginia. All right, came from El Salvador with barely nothing. Okay, and worked his butt off in construction jobs and landscaping jobs. And now he owns two freaking of the first Latino grocery stores within the county. And he came back here in the 80s. So, that says a lot, you know what I mean? And he came back when El Salvador had their civil war going on, So like I said, it says a lot. It says a lot. So that's the moral of the story when it comes to the Truman Show. We all have our own version of the Truman Show, especially given the fact that with today's pandemic and whatnot, life has become a lot more mundane because there's nothing open. There's not really any events going on. People can't really travel like they want to, like they used to. I know I can't. Even though things have opened up slowly but surely, it's still nothing like it was before March of this year, 2020. You don't see any major events going on. Everything's online. Anything wrong with online? Absolutely not. But eventually, like I said, hey, I miss going to a concert and to a comedy show every now and then. I miss being out and about and be able to, enjoy life outside of my cell phone. So, That's what I'm saying. And it's like, so more life has become more and more like the Truman Show, because that's one thing that drove Truman crazy is every day was the same. Every single day was the same. Literally, you get up in the morning, his neighbors came to him and said the same thing every day. It was always good morning. And if I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Okay, it was always the same thing. When he got downtown and was trying to go to his office building, the same people would come talk to him about the same old thing. I think that would drive people, any normal person, insane. Okay, if there's not any variety or anything of that nature, I think it's very unhealthy to just live a plain, simple, mundane life all the time. That's just my personal opinion on that one. Okay, so I leave it at that. You know, if anybody wants to call in, let me know in the comment section. If not, I will call it a night. But I just had to talk about this story because it's an interesting story, and I think next week I'll talk about the McDonald's story, because that's very interesting. I'm still finishing the movie. It's talking about I did the research. I just wanted to watch the movie, but it's talking about how it turned into a more of a real estate business than a franchising business. And that's because that's really the genius behind the McDonald's model in itself. All right. So like I said, excuse me, I'm finishing up my dinner, but that's the gist of it when it comes to the Truman Show. And let me know in the comment section if you feel like life has become more of the same old, same old. You know, I mean, I guess because even there's not even that many television shows or movies that are out because no one's making them like that. I mean, you got more content online, and that's great, but you just don't have as much variety in life as you used to. And I know that there's been a lot of things going on with the music, people doing the verse battles and things of that nature, but I know most reasonable, sane people want to get back to normal. You know, they want to get back to some sort of normalcy to where life has a little bit more action going on. Let's put it like that. Excitement going on. Let's put it like that. But I'll leave it at that. Like I said, nobody wants to call in. I will see you guys later. Do the great 3 free things: like, share, and subscribe. Hopefully you have a great evening, family. I will see you guys next time. I just wanted to talk about that story. And like I said, let me know if you guys have any perspective in regards to how does it feel like after me explaining the Truman Show, does it feel like you guys are living in it right now? I mean, obviously you haven't been adopted by a corporation or anything of that nature. You're not stuck living in the studio. But with people being at home a lot more, and like I said, there's still upsides to it. But does your life seem like it's a little bit more mundane or whatnot? You know, less exciting and whatnot. You know, so I think there's good and pluses and minuses with this whole thing. I mean, obviously the biggest minus is people losing their life, people getting sick. I will never make light of that whatsoever, because it's definitely serious. All right. But so the rest of society, it's like I said, I just think that we've come, because we're basically almost in September now. And the fact that we're in September and we're, the year is basically over with, and it's not seeing too much light at the end of the tunnel. You know, the only thing the media can report to me is we have a vaccine or we don't. At this juncture, I don't care. If you're not talking about that, then I don't need to hear anything else. A lot of craziness still going on. I definitely implore everybody to stay safe out there. And when it comes to all levels of every aspect of life nowadays, all right? But on that note, family, take care. Thanks for all the love. Announcement, I finally got past a certain amount of YouTube subscribers, so thank you guys for subscribing. It's greatly appreciated. We're growing, and I want the financial intelligence movement to reach out to everybody and every planet in every way. All right? So as always, make money moves, and I'll see you guys later. Take care.